At precisely 5:42 in the morning in the early morning hours over the Strait of Hormuz, the stillness was shattered. A streak of fire tore across the dawn sky, a missile launched from an Iranian coastal battery, cutting through the humid air toward a lone silhouette in the water. For a moment, the world seemed frozen. On the radar screens aboard the United States Navy's Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the threat marker turned crimson. Every sailor knew the first shot had just been fired. What happened next was not chaos, it was precision. In seconds, a response unfolded that military analysts will study for decades. The destroyer did not dodge. It did not retreat. It waited, calm, calculated. Then, in a single, decisive command, the ship's Aegis combat system came alive, unleashing a counterstrike so fast, so overwhelming, it erased the threat before it could even make a second move. What changed in that instant? How did an incoming missile become the trigger for a counteroffensive that would ripple across the entire Middle East, shifting the balance of power in a single morning? If you believe understanding these moments matters not just the headlines, but the strategy beneath them, then join this mission. Hit subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and stand with us in exploring the truth behind the tactics. 5:30 in the morning, pre-engagement positioning. For weeks, intelligence reports had been flowing into United States Naval Command in Bahrain, suggesting that Iranian coastal missile units had been repositioned along the northern edge of the Strait of Hormuz. Satellite imagery captured just 48 hours before the incident revealed mobile launchers camouflaged under netting, with suspected Noor and Qatar anti-ship cruise missiles on standby. The United States Navy destroyer USS Porter, an Arleigh Burke-class warship, had been operating under strict rules of engagement. It sailed within international waters, positioned in a slow eastward patrol pattern, a calculated tactic to appear vulnerable, yet prepared. Its mission: monitor, deter, and if necessary, neutralize threats before they could jeopardize maritime shipping lanes. 5:42 in the morning, the first shot. Without warning, the first missile left the Iranian coastline. The launch was detected instantly by the ship's AN/SPY-1D phased array radar, the heart of the Aegis combat system. At this point, standard naval doctrine would recommend evasive maneuvering to minimize exposure. But the USS Porter held its course. The decision was deliberate by waiting. The crew ensured Iran would commit fully, revealing not just one launcher but its entire targeting network. 5:43 in the morning, layered defensive activation. In a sequence lasting less than 15 seconds, the ship's Combat Information Center moved through the Aegis system's engagement protocols. Phase 1. Electronic countermeasures activated, flooding the incoming missile's seeker with false radar returns. Phase 2. 2 SM-6. Dual-eye interceptors launched vertically, climbing into the pre-dawn sky. Their seeker heads locked onto the missile's heat and radar signature. Phase 3. Close. In weapon system mounts rotated into firing arcs, prepared for last. Resort interception should the missile slip through. Both SM-6 interceptors detonated within a 3-second window, shredding the incoming missile at nearly Mach 3 speed before it crossed the engagement envelope. The explosion was a bright flash over the horizon, visible even to commercial shipping vessels miles away. 5:44 in the morning. Immediate counterstrike orders. The engagement rules now shifted. Iranian missile crews had exposed their positions, and this opened the door for a precise, proportional response. The USS Porter's Mach 41 vertical launch system prepared a second salvo, this time targeting the coordinates of the missile launch site, triangulated by satellite relay and signals intelligence from an orbiting RQ-4 Global Hawk Drive 1. 4 Tomahawk land attack missiles left the destroyer in rapid succession, skimming just meters above the sea before angling toward the coast. Naval doctrine dictated this strike would be surgical, aimed to disable missile batteries without striking civilian infrastructure. 5:48 in the morning, coastal impact. Reports from regional monitoring posts confirmed multiple detonations in the Iranian launch zone. Radar tracking in the United States Fifth Fleet Operations Room showed the disappearance of 2 hostile targeting radars, rendering their coastal defense grid temporarily blind. Geopolitical shockwave. The event was already racing through international news wires. Global crude oil prices ticked upward by 2% within 30 minutes. In Washington, Pentagon briefings underscored that the destroyer had acted in self-defense, citing Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. In Tehran, state-controlled broadcasts framed the engagement as an unprovoked act of aggression. The tactical shift. Iran's coastal command now faced a dilemma: launch additional salvos and risk further losses, or pull back and preserve remaining assets. United States Naval Command knew this hesitation was the window for escalation control. The USS Porter maintained its position, with 2 Allied frigates from NATO's Standing Maritime Group moving in to extend the defensive perimeter. 5:55 in the morning, Iranian countermove. In the minutes following the destruction of their first missile and the disabling of coastal radars, Iran's naval command scrambled to recover. Mobile launchers along the Bandar-e-Jas coastline began repositioning inland, moving behind elevated terrain to avoid further Tomahawk strikes. Meanwhile, fast attack craft of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, small, high-speed boats armed with 107mm rocket launchers and lightweight torpedoes, surged out from hidden coves. Their intent was to swarm the USS Porter before additional long-range strikes could be coordinated. This swarm tactic, long rehearsed in Iranian doctrine, aimed to overwhelm a larger vessel's defensive systems by presenting dozens of small, fast-moving targets simultaneously. 6:02 in the morning, layered naval response. The USS Porter was no longer alone in the battle space. 40 nautical miles to the southeast, the USS Philippine Sea, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, altered course at flank speed, closing the distance to bring its additional Aegis radar coverage into range. At the same time, 2 Allied NATO frigates, HMS Kent and FS Aquitaine, tightened their patrol arcs, forming a moving defensive net. The USS Porter's radar operators switched modes, setting the SPY-1D array to high-frequency surface search. Sea-skimming detection picked up the incoming swarm at over 20 nautical miles. 6:04 in the morning, the air umbrella deploys. From the deck of the USS Philippine Sea, 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters lifted off, each equipped with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and advanced targeting pods. Their mission: intercept and neutralize the fast attack craft before they reached engagement range. Overhead, a United States Air Force MQ-9 Reaper Drive 1, already orbiting at 15,000 feet, was retasked to provide laser designation for precision strikes. Within minutes, the drone's feed revealed the swarm's exact formation, enabling the USS Porter's Combat Information Center to calculate overlapping fields of fire for its Make 3 8.2 5mm autocannons. 6:08 in the morning, first contact with the swarm. As the Iranian craft breached the 12 nautical mile mark, the MH-60Rs launched a coordinated Hellfire salvo, taking out the lead boats in the formation. The sudden destruction of the vanguard forced the rest of the swarm to scatter, reducing their ability to overwhelm defenses in a single-mast approach. The USS Porter's forward Mark 38 mount opened up, stitching lines of high-explosive rounds across the water's surface, while the ship's 5-inch Mark 45 naval gun engaged targets at medium range. Every firing solution was backed by real-time adjustments from the drone overhead, ensuring minimal ammunition waste. 6:12 in the morning, precision from above. At the height of the skirmish, the USS Philippine Sea fired a single Harpoon anti-ship missile, not at the swarm, but at a larger IRGC support vessel that had been coordinating their attack. The Harpoon struck amidships, breaking the command link and leaving the smaller craft without centralized direction, strategic implication of the swarm's failure. By neutralizing both the swarm's leadership and the forward elements before they could converge, the United States Navy had effectively dismantled Iran's first coordinated counterattack in less than 15 minutes. This demonstrated the layered integration of sea, air, and drone assets, a textbook execution of network-centric warfare. The Strait of Hormuz remained open for commercial shipping, but every player in the region understood the subtext. The United States Navy could not only defend itself under sudden attack, it could project dominance in the most contested waterways on Earth. 6:18 in the morning, the long-range threat emerges. With their fast attack swarm shattered, Iranian commanders shifted to a different playbook, one they believed would be harder to counter. From fortified inland positions near Chabahar, Iran's missile forces began readying a battery of Khalij Fars and Fateh 110 precision-guided ballistic missiles, designed specifically for anti-ship strikes. Unlike the earlier cruise missile, these weapons could arc high into the upper atmosphere before plunging toward their targets at hypersonic speeds. For the United States Navy, this posed a much more complex threat. The Aegis combat system could intercept them, but only if the missiles were detected early enough. 6:23 in the morning, early detection network activates. Well before the Iranian launchers fired, detection data began streaming in from multiple sources. Space-based tracking. Low Earth orbit satellites under the space-based infrared system flagged unusual thermal signatures inland. Airborne relay. A United States Air Force E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft orbiting near Oman relayed the data to 5th Fleet HQ. Allied support. French frigate FS Aquitaine's radar suite provided additional cross-fix coordinates, giving the Aegis operators a precise launch window. 6:25 in the morning, multiple launches detected. 6 ballistic missiles ignited almost simultaneously. Their contrails, bright against the morning haze, were visible even to civilian vessels transiting the strait. Within seconds, the USS Porter's threat board lit up with 6 red inbound markers, each on a terminal path toward United States and NATO vessels. 6:26 in the morning, electronic warfare in motion. The United States Navy's defensive response was swift and layered. Electronic countermeasures. The destroyer's SLQ-32 V6 system began broadcasting powerful jamming signals to disrupt the missile's terminal guidance phase. Decoy deployment. Nulka active missile decoys launched from both the USS Porter and HMS Kent, creating false radar targets drifting several hundred meters off the ship's actual positions. Interceptor coordination. USS Philippine Sea assumed primary ballistic missile defense duties, preparing to launch Standard Missile-3 interceptors at the highest point in the missile's flight arcs. 6:27 in the morning, mid-course interception. 2 SM-3 Block IIA interceptors screamed into the upper atmosphere from USS Philippine Sea's MAC 41 cells. Moments later, they collided with 2 of the inbound missiles, obliterating them in kinetic flashes visible to the naked eye from miles away. The remaining 4 were now entering terminal phase far too close for SM-3 intercepts. This was the USS Porter's fight. 6:28 in the morning, terminal defense. The Porter's vertical launch cells opened again, releasing a volley of SM-6 Dual-2 missiles. Designed to engage both high-speed ballistic and low-flying cruise missiles, the SM-6 second arced upward, meeting the incoming warheads head-on. 2 more Iranian missiles were destroyed in high-altitude bursts. The last 2 managed to break through to within a few nautical miles dangerously close. The ship's phalanx CIWS erupted, its 20mm Gatling barrels spinning at 4,500 rounds per minute. The tungsten rounds shredded the final threats in rapid succession, sending fragments harmlessly into the sea. 6:30 in the morning, the strait stays open. The entire engagement from detection to final kill lasted just over 7 minutes. Not a single United States or Allied vessel sustained damage. The Strait of Hormuz remained operational, but the escalation had moved from a regional skirmish into an event with global economic consequences. International reverberations. By the time the smoke cleared, global oil futures had spiked by 4%. NATO emergency meetings were already convening in Brussels. Washington's official statement stressed that all United States Navy actions were defensive. Still, analysts knew that Iran's high-value missile batteries had now been exposed, making them targets if hostilities continued. The next move would determine whether this remained a contained naval incident or spiraled into a broader conflict involving cyber warfare, covert strikes, and perhaps other nations stepping in. 6:45 in the morning, silence before the shift. For 15 minutes after the last missile was destroyed, the Strait of Hormuz seemed unnervingly calm. No more launches, no swarm boats, no visible radar emissions from the Iranian coastline. For the USS Porter's crew, it was the kind of quiet that experienced sailors distrust too complete, too deliberate. In the Combat Information Center, radar operators noticed something strange. Coastal radar sites, previously knocked offline by Tomahawk strikes, were now flickering back to life, but their signals were different. Instead of broad sweeps, they were emitting tight, intermittent bursts, almost like encrypted beacons. 6:47 in the morning, unseen visitors. Over the horizon, the USS Philippine Sea's radar detected small, low-profile contacts moving at high speed. At first, they appeared to be civilian fishing vessels, but infrared imagery from an orbiting RQ-4 Global Hawk told a different story. These were missile barges, each carrying short-range ballistic missile canisters, camouflaged under tarps. They had been kept hidden deep in coastal inlets until now. The barges were heading toward a narrow point in the strait, attempting to get within 20 nautical miles of the United States and NATO ships, close enough to overwhelm defenses before detection. 6:49 in the morning, the hidden card is played. Up to this point, the United States Navy had relied on visible, conventional assets. But this was the moment a classified system entered the fight. In a dimly lit compartment aboard the USS Porter, technicians activated a system few outside certain naval circles had heard of. The AN/SLQ-59 Directed Energy Defense Suite, mounted discreetly under the destroyer's forward superstructure. This prototype system combined advanced electronic warfare and high-energy laser capability. Its purpose: neutralize missile threats before they even left their launch platforms. 6:50 in the morning, precision strike without a shot fired. As the missile barges approached firing range, the SLQ-59's targeting system locked on. Instead of destroying the vessels outright, the system focused narrow beams of energy at the canisters themselves. In less than 4 seconds, the missile guidance electronics inside overheated and failed, rendering them inoperable without causing explosive detonation. To Iranian crews, nothing seemed to happen, no explosion, no visible strike. But when they attempted to launch, their firing circuits were dead. Confusion rippled across their decks. 6:52 in the morning, the psychological impact. The Iranian command had no immediate explanation. From their perspective, the United States Navy had neutralized a major attack without firing a visible shot. Naval analysts watching the satellite feed later noted this was the first simulated operational use of a next-generation non-kinetic ship defense in open waters. The incident's effect on regional decision-making was immediate. If the United States could silently disable missile systems before launch, it fundamentally altered the calculus of maritime confrontations. 7 o'clock in the morning, strategic repositioning. Iranian missile barges turned back toward port. Fast attack craft retreated to defensive positions. On the United States side, the USS Porter and her escorts tightened formation, holding their position in the strait but refraining from further offensive action, signaling readiness without escalation. The battle's tempo had shifted completely. What began as a kinetic exchange was now a psychological and strategic standoff. And in the halls of Allied command centers, the real discussion began. Should this hidden capability remain secret, or had its very demonstration already changed the balance of power in the Persian Gulf forever? From a purely tactical perspective, the Strait of Hormuz engagement was a textbook demonstration of layered defense doctrine at its most refined. The United States Navy did not simply respond to threats. It orchestrated a defensive ballet, integrating shipboard interceptors, electronic warfare, airborne assets, and intelligence from Allied platforms into a unified shield. Strategic takeaways. Deterrence through composure. The USS Porter's decision to hold fire until Iran committed to the first strike reinforced one of the core principles of maritime deterrence. Demonstrate restraint until engagement is unavoidable, then respond with overwhelming precision. This reinforced the United States' claim to legitimacy under international law, bolstering its diplomatic position with NATO allies and neutral states. Network-centric superiority. The battle underscored the advantage of a truly networked force. Every kill in the engagement was the product of multiple data sources, satellites, drones, AWACS, allied ships, feeding into a single decision-making loop. This reduced reaction time to seconds and prevented Iranian forces from exploiting surprise. Emergence of non-kinetic warfare. The debut of the SLQ-59 Directed Energy Defense Suite was a quiet revolution. By neutralizing missile threats without visible destruction, the system achieved the same result as a kinetic strike, while avoiding collateral damage and escalation risks. It also introduced a psychological factor. Adversaries now had to consider the possibility that any launch could fail silently. Geopolitical ripple effect. Within hours of the engagement, oil prices spiked, and European capitals pressed for emergency NATO consultations. Gulf states publicly reaffirmed the importance of United States naval presence in the region, while adversarial powers took note of the Navy's ability to neutralize multi-axis attacks with minimal footprint. Operational consequences for Iran. Iran's missile forces suffered tangible losses. Several coastal launchers and targeting radars were destroyed or disabled. The swarm tactic, long considered a viable asymmetric strategy, failed decisively against integrated air-sea defense. The missile barge concept was exposed and countered before operational success. Long-term implications. In strategic terms, the incident served as both a deterrent and a message. For the United States and NATO, it validated the investment in advanced missile defense and non-kinetic technologies. For regional actors, it was a reminder that any escalation in the strait could be met with immediate, precise, and overwhelming countermeasures. Yet, there was also caution in Washington's corridors. Overwhelming capability can be a double-edged sword. It can prevent war, or it can tempt adversaries to seek more unconventional, unpredictable means of confrontation. The battle in the Strait of Hormuz ended without a single United States or Allied vessel taking damage, but the implications were felt in every capital from Washington to Beijing. The morning's engagement cost Iran not just missile batteries and patrol craft, but also an intangible asset, the element of surprise. In financial terms, the fight's impact was immediate. Oil prices surged in the global market. Insurance premiums for shipping through the Gulf rose overnight, and futures traders recalculated risk for months ahead. Military analysts estimated that between the deployment of interceptors, the expenditure of Tomahawk missiles, and the operational tempo of Allied ships and aircraft, the cost to sustain such a defense reached into the tens of millions of dollars, a stark reminder that even defensive wars come with a heavy price tag. For the United States Navy and NATO, the engagement was a validation of doctrine. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's Aegis combat system, backed by SM-6 interceptors, electronic warfare, airborne surveillance, and non-kinetic strike capability, demonstrated not just tactical proficiency, but a layered architecture that can withstand and adapt to evolving threats. This was a message to allies. The sea lanes remain secure. And to adversaries. Escalation comes at a cost they may not wish to pay. Yet beneath the surface of operational success lies a deeper truth. Technology can tilt the scales, but it is human decision-making, the restraint to hold fire until justified, the discipline to execute flawlessly under pressure that keeps a tense encounter from becoming a regional war. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most strategic choke points, and history has shown that such flashpoints can ignite broader conflicts, if not handled with precision and caution. This simulation, while fictional, reflects a reality every naval commander understands. Strength deters chaos, but it must be paired with the wisdom to use it sparingly. As the USS Porter and her escorts resumed their patrol that morning, their message was clear without a word spoken. The United States will defend freedom of navigation, not through reckless aggression, but through readiness, unity, and technological superiority. In a world where a single missile can alter the course of nations, preparation is not an option, it is the price of peace. If you believe that understanding these moments matters, if you want to see the strategy behind the headlines and not just the headlines themselves, then stand with us. Subscribe now, share this story, and join the conversation in the comments. History is being shaped in real time, and together, we can ensure it is understood.